What are you afraid of? I mean, when you really think about it, what are you afraid of? I was talking with Rebecca earlier, and she said, what are you going to be talking about? And I said, I'm going to be talking about the idea of fear and faith this morning. So she said, are you going to talk about how you're afraid of bugs and dirt again? I was going to until she said that. But no, for real, what keeps you up at night? What are you afraid of? Have you told your spouse or your significant other? Are you afraid of failure? And does it then drive you to succeed? Or does it just drive you to not make mistakes? Are you afraid of poverty? And does that drive you to work that much harder? You're afraid you can't take care of your families, and so you work that much more, actually neglecting your family in the process of trying to take care of them. Are you afraid of death? And if you're afraid of death, are you doing everything you can to preserve your life? Are you afraid of war? Are you afraid of losing the opportunity at immortality? Are you afraid that you'll be forgotten? I was asking this question because in our Torah portion this week, Parshat Devarim, it said Moses is preparing to die. He knows the Israelites are going to continue on to the promised land without him, and here Moses is getting ready to die, but also he's preparing the Israelites, many of whom had only begun to experience war at this point because they were young, and he's preparing them to conquer the promised land, right? To go to war. And Moses says, reminding the people what Moses had said to Joshua, "You have seen with your own eyes all that the Lord your God has done to these two kings. So shall the Lord do to all the kingdoms in which you shall cross over." Right? God is saying, remember, I carried you through all of these wars. You won. Now get prepared to enter the promised land because you're going to encounter even more wars. And Moses says to Joshua, "Do not fear, for it is the Lord your God who will battle for you. Do not fear, for it is the Lord your God who will battle for you." Well, on one hand, it struck me as sort of a silly statement. Don't fear. Okay, here you are, Joshua. You're leading soldiers into battle, and you're not going to be afraid? And ultimately, we're telling our soldiers, you're going into battle, but don't be afraid? Could you imagine having that much faith that you're just not afraid? Now, I would imagine all of us know somebody like that who just has so much faith within them that they fear nothing, that they believe everything is in God's hands and they have nothing to fear. And as I was thinking about this, I was thinking if I was really a man of faith, when I was 18 and jumping out of an airplane on purpose, and you get lined up, right, and you get ready to push yourself away from the plane and down, if I was really a person of faith, maybe I would have jumped out of that airplane without a parachute on my back. Because after all, God would provide. Right? But this is not how Jews think. Right? I jumped out of that airplane with not only a parachute on my back, but somebody who actually knew what they were doing strapped to me as well, just in case. We Jews, in our faith, don't believe we put everything in God's hands. We actually utilize our fear to help us bring our sense of rationality, our sense of intellect, to whatever battle we're going to confront. But we Jews have been so successful in our response to fear, in our rationality, in our intellectualism, that we've actually lost some of our faith. Now, this Shabbat of Parshat Devarim, we're challenged to think about the role of fear and faith in our lives. How do we overcome our fears? And how do we overcome the fears that we all share, which is ultimately the fear of death? and the fear of the not being able to live forever. Two different fears. The fear of death and the fear of not being able to live forever. And so I was studying in the Talmud. This is Masechet Baba Batra. And in it, Rabbi Judah is talking about tzedakah. He's talking about charity. And he's talking about gimilut chasadim, acts of loving kindness. And really, he first quotes Rabbi Elazar, the son of Rabbi Yossi, who said, all acts of charity and kindness that the nation of Israel performs in this world create great peace and defending angels between the nation of Israel and their Father in heaven. It was a fascinating quotation because ultimately, at least personally, I've spent the last week or so, 2 weeks now, being afraid of nuclear war, being afraid of what's happening in the Middle East. And I came across this quotation and it said, acts of charity and kindness bring peace to the world. How can we, through our charity and acts of kindness, overcome our fear of nuclear war and bring peace to the world? That's just an interesting side thought. But then here we come to Rabbi Judah. And it says that Rabbi Judah was wont to say, 10 strong or really tough, hard things were created in the world. Rabbi Judah teaches that a mountain is strong. A mountain is strong. But iron cleaves it. You can take an axe or a pick or a shovel even and break that mountain. He goes on to say, iron is strong, but fire softens it. Fire is strong, but water extinguishes it. Right? For every really hard thing, there's something that actually overcomes it. Water is strong, but clouds bear it. Clouds are strong, but wind scatters them. Wind is strong, but a body bears it. A body is strong, but fear breaks it. A body is strong, but fear breaks it. And again, it comes to call into the question, what role does fear play in your life? How is it slowing you down? How is it inhibiting you from doing that which you really want to accomplish or achieve? How is it getting in the way of your ability to make a lasting difference in the world? Rabbi Judah continues, fear is strong, but wine dispels it. Probably not Manischewitz, but maybe some of the better stuff. Wine is strong, but sleep lessens its effect. And then he says, but death is stronger than all of these. Death is the great equalizing factor. Death is what conquers everything, or so it seems. When God sent death to this world following the fall of Adam and Eve in the garden, is that what conquers all? And ultimately, Rabbi Judah comes to teach, while it seems that death is stronger than all of these, charity, tzedakah, saves a person from death. As it's written in Proverbs chapter 10, and charity will save from death. Charity has the power to rescue a person from the most powerful force in creation. As we this Shabbat begin to look at our fears, as we look at Tisha B'Av and the idea that we were destroyed, our people were destroyed because of senseless hatred, because of our inability to worship God, and I'm particularly mindful of my fear of the destruction of the Jewish people, whether that be by a nuclear bomb in the Middle East, or whether that be by assimilation. I am particularly afraid of the destruction of the Jewish people, and I know that that drives me. What fears do you have? How can you overcome them? And when it comes to the fears that we all share, the fear of death, and the fear that our memories will not continue on after us, let's consider the role that tzedakah can play. Of course, as they teach, the only money you get to keep after death is the money you give away, not the money you still have in your pocket when it's over. But ultimately, how do we create memorials for ourselves? Through acts of tzedakah, by empowering institutions and individuals who will carry on our memories long after we're gone. This Shabbat of Parashat Devarim, as we look at our fears, let us remember, tzedakah can overcome even death, and faith can overcome every fear. Shabbat Shalom.